Okay, so we're going to get started here. I'm going to, obviously you're here to see and hear Roberta. I'm here as your webinar facilitator. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please text me in the chat. Otherwise, keep your questions and answers to the end, but please put them in the chat in the Q&A and we will call on you when they're ready. It's all yours.
Thanks, Linda. Just gonna share my screen here. Are we good to go?
You're good to go.
Okay, I think we are. Well, welcome. I'm so excited to have all of you here on the Great Refusal to Work Live webinar. My reason for presenting this webinar today is that, in the past 3 months, I have heard so many lies about, the workforce today that I just decided it was time for someone to tell you the truth. And the truth is, there are a lot of people who want to work. They just don't want to work for you. And I know that may be hard to hear, but it's the truth. And so I want to start today off by sharing the quote from Dan Price. And I'm going to just look at my notes. He's the CEO and founder of Gravity Payments. And if you don't know Dan and you're not following his work, I would encourage you to do so, because about 5 years ago, he decided to pay every employee like a minimum of $70,000 a year. And I know some of you are working in industries that might not be possible, but think in terms of what would your $70,000 number be in your industry that would really capture the attention and the hearts of people. So here's what he posted this last week on LinkedIn. Quote, our business has a $70,000 minimum wage, a medium wage close to $100,000, full benefits, paid time off, 401k grants that are minimal in terms of the interest, and unlimited paid parental leave. We've had over 300 applicants per job opening this year. Anyone else had that many applicants? Qualified applicants, right? I'm sure some of these people might not be qualified, but I'm guessing that many of them are. And here's what he said. There's no labor shortage. There's a shortage of jobs with a living wage and basic benefits. I don't know about you, but that got my attention. So let's go with that. So here's your current reality. All right. Here's what people are saying in terms of the Great Refusal to Work lie. I'm hearing no one wants to work. People are lazy. They'd rather sit home and collect unemployment. The extended benefits are still ongoing in some states, and it's $300 a week. Excuse me. And that the other part of that is that when people are recruiting, they're like, well, people don't really care about money. Okay, so those are 4 of the many lies that are out there right now. And so I was in discussion the other day with a client, and of course, he was repeating what everyone else is saying. And it's like those stimulus checks, that's why we can't get people. And I placed a bet with him. I bet him dinner at any restaurant of his choice. Like, I don't care if it's the most expensive place, that come September, when those extended benefits end, that we are still going to be in this situation. So come back and write to me later on, and I'll tell you where he took me to dinner. That's how confident I am. So here's the current reality. Your inability to fill these jobs is creating enormous stress on the people who are in the jobs in your organization. And so how long can they really last in these jobs, right? Because if you're doing the job of 1 or 2 people, okay, that can go for a little bit while, but what about when you're doing the job of 3 or 4 people? That's just crazy. So if you don't get these jobs filled, and you don't get them filled with the right people, you are going to wind up losing even more people. And if you can't find people, what is that going to do, right? And so there are currently a record-breaking 9.2 million job openings here in the US. Okay, and this number is rising daily. Again, 9.2 million jobs that are open. And here's the thing, your customers don't care that you can't find workers. They just want to be taken care of. And if you can't do it, they're going to take their business elsewhere. So this is why this topic is so critical. You know, I was at a restaurant the other night and, you know, you hear these stories about not enough staff. Okay, so we gave them some slack, right? So we're sitting there, we're on like our fifth bowl of bread and we're still waiting. And it's just like, okay, I don't think we're going to come back here. So that's what's going on. That's the reality. So I'd like to hear in the chat box, and Linda, maybe you can read some of the answers. I'd like to hear why you all think you can't find talent. Like, what do you think the number one reason is? And if you think it's the stimulus money, say so.
So Doug did say a minute ago, people would come back to work if their workplace was the kind of place people want to return to.
Yes. There's nothing else to add to that statement. Yes.
Yeah. So anyone, why do you think you can't find talent? Just tell us in the chat box. Okay, here's a couple. Affordable childcare. I don't know where to look for the right specialized people. People want to work at home full time. Wages. The inability to afford the people with the talents and their demands. My organization is not willing to change strict teleworking rules. Stylists say they are making more money and receiving more benefits to stay home. I'm noticing that many young new hires want a career plan to see how they can advance, and we aren't set up that way as a business.
Well, thank you. Thank you, guys. Many of you hit on some of the key, some of the key reasons that we're seeing. And so, I'm wondering, are you feeling nervous about this whole situation? Or are you cautiously optimistic that come September, that this is all going to change?
One more. Employers do not put enough energy into making their company a desirable workplace. And we have a couple people saying, one says, my organization is not a destination organization. And Tom says, interestingly enough, the best hiring managers are finding talent.
Yes, that's very interesting. Well, somebody read my article this week on the destination organization, so thank you for that. And if you haven't read it and you want a copy, feel free to email me. My contact information is on the slides here, and I'll put it up later. So let's just unpack this, because that's really why you're here. Here's why you can't fill jobs, and there are many, many reasons, but in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on 4. Number 1, and these are in no particular order, people want control over where they work and when they work. And it's so interesting to me because during the pandemic, everyone was like, it's okay if you need to work from home and work whatever hours you want. And people were, for the most part, very productive. And work was getting done despite the fact that these many of you are parents, and you were schooling your kids at the same time as trying to get lunch on the table while making a call, but it worked. And now all of a sudden we're saying, oh, you have to come back to the office. It's my way or the highway. And people are a little bit confused by that. And they're saying, you know what? I'll take the highway. And here's the thing about the highway right now. You can work in any state remotely, whereas before, maybe not so much. And so you've got a lot of people who are looking at your jobs and they're saying, there's no flexibility here, and this doesn't work for me. So something to consider. And there's also, I want to share with you another study, because many of you can't really afford, in my opinion, to stand around and keep these rigid rules. A recent study by Prudential found that 1 in 4 workers say they'll be looking for a new job in 2021. And that number with millennials is even higher at 34%, and Gen Z is at 54%. And then there was another study that came out last week, I think it was, with Monster. And that one really kind of threw me for a loop even. And that study indicated that 95% of workers say that they will be looking for a new job this year. So, listen, I get that a lot of times, it's an exaggeration. So even if you just slice that number in half, I want you to think about what will happen if 50% of your people leave their jobs. Like, what is that going to do to your business? The second reason, your benefits aren't competitive. And we've got job seekers right now. You read about all these awesome stories about these terrific perks, and people are thinking, well, I should have this, right? And so they are looking at companies that are offering them the benefits that they need and want. And so if you're not in that category, then your pipeline is probably going to run dry fairly soon if it hasn't done so already. The third reason, many of you have overinflated job requirements. And if you keep those requirements the way they are, you're not going to find people. And if you do find people and they take these jobs, they will figure out quickly that these jobs are not challenging, because you don't really need an MBA to be, a supervisor in a manufacturing plant. And so they're going to wait, and they'll maybe take the job while you do all the training. And then when something comes up that's more appropriate, they will leave. So, my advice to you is to take a look at your job requirements. If a job doesn't require a college degree, take it off. Okay, you will widen your net. And then the fourth issue, of course, is money. And, as we talked about, money is important. And the people who say that money doesn't matter, well, they have money. So, my daughter is a college student. She was working as a barista. She was, pretty happy in her job, and was feeling at some point not very well valued, because her pay wasn't really adequate given her experience. She had 3 years of experience. And so she literally walked across the street and got a significant pay increase to work in the same role in another shop. Can you blame her? I can't. I was her advisor. I said, well, if your company's not willing to match that, or even, give you, any more money, then you gotta do what's best. So my guess is that if you're losing people, you really need to think about that. What are just, those 4 areas? And there are many more, but for now, let's just focus on that. Here's what I'm finding in a lot of organizations. Many of you are doing a terrific job of repelling talent. I was working with a client in the restaurant industry, and he didn't even know this, but his head of HR was posting their jobs on ZipRecruiter. And they couldn't understand why they get these candidates on the line, but then they couldn't hire them. Well, I said to him, why don't I become a candidate? Let me apply for a job with your company. And what happened next was startling. I went in and I applied through ZipRecruiter. And all of a sudden, I was getting emails oh gosh, maybe 3 times a day. Hey, how about this opportunity at this hospitality organization? Oh, we noticed that you're looking for this kind of job. These 5 companies have jobs. I mean, I was like, really? And they're paying more money. I could not believe my eyes. And so he had no idea that the site that he was choosing to list his jobs was recommending other jobs to candidates. Brilliant, for the other companies, but not so great for him. And so what I have found is, I'm going to advise you to apply for a job with your own company. and see if you can get hired. Because many of your candidates can't even get through your applicant tracking system. And then I want you to write to me and tell me your experience. It's amazing. Another reason, your online process is, your application process, it's torture, absolute torture. So I have a question for you all. What percent of, how many people, what percentage of people do you think apply for jobs on their mobile devices? If you can put in the chat box, just give me a rough percentage.
So let us know. I see 75%, 60, 65, 90, 45, 75, 70, 50, 80, 85. Oh, we're all over the map. And then Doug wants to know, he loves how Roberta tells it like it is. He wants to tell us that.
Thank you.
80, 85, 70, 60.
So I should have probably done this like the Price is Right. Like if you go over the number, like you don't win, but 61%. And I got to tell you, I was shocked. I didn't know that. And so just now, I want you to just close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to just imagine you have your mobile device out and you're applying for a job, and that company requires you to put your, type in your entire resume. I want to know how many days you think it's going to take for you to apply to get your application through. And so I'm here to tell you that if it takes more than 10 minutes, someone's not going to apply and they're going to go to the next employer. So, if you haven't updated your application process, which many of you haven't, you best do that now, because people can't get through and they're giving up and they're going elsewhere. The third reason, and I think Linda, you might have something to say about this as well, is you're taking way too long to move people through the interview process. And Linda and I were talking yesterday, and be that as it may, her daughter who has been greatly impacted by the pandemic, her whole industry shut down, has 2 job offers in hand and 2 more en route, and the other people are taking a little too long. And I'll tell you, I don't know if they're going to get that talent. She may just decide to take what's in her hand. So if that's you, then you need to make sure that you are moving people through that process very, very quickly. So let's talk about where to find sources of hidden talent. Just in the chat box, let us know, what is the most unusual place where you discover talent?
Colleges, someone said. For tech talent, GitHub. Let's see, anybody else? Starbucks, interesting. Word of mouth, a large box store, social media, job fairs. Let's see.
Thank you. Well, some of you are right on track. So here's my philosophy on finding talent. If you've ever been to an amusement park, you know that when you're waiting in line and you're waiting to get into the park, as soon as the park opens, the majority of people for some reason go to the right. I want you to go to the left, because when you go to the left, you find that there are the same rides, the same food, the same gift shops when you go to the left. And it's the same thing with talent. When people are looking to hire talent, everybody's going for that shiny penny, right? Everybody's going, let's get that young college graduate. Let's recruit from Harvard. I mean, like, God forbid you go to a state school. Nobody wants to show up to hire, right? I mean, it makes no sense to me, because sometimes the top of the class at the state school is even brighter than the bottom of the class at Harvard. So, I want you to really think about where you're looking for talent. And so here are some places where you can find hidden talent. Lots and lots of parents are looking to return to the workplace. And you'll see their resume and you'll be like, oh, I don't know. They haven't worked in like 3 years. Really? Like, has the world changed that much? You mean to tell me they can't come up to speed in like, a day or two? If you think about today's space launch, I was actually shocked to know that I think they had like 9 hours of training before they went up. That didn't seem like much to me, but apparently they had, when you think about, in the past, the astronauts would have months of training. And I think things are being done at lightning speed today. Another place to look is the underemployed workers. And those are people who are working in restaurants. Somebody said Starbucks. That's an awesome place to recruit. The person who's working behind the counter, they may be doing that in between jobs. They have student loans to pay. They're bright, they're personable. You need someone who's bright and personable. Perfect, take them, poach them. You're also your delivery personnel. We all have those people who show up every day from Amazon and UPS, and some of them are driving because they're in between jobs. And if you engage in a conversation, you may find that they actually have a degree or they have the skills you're looking for. Another place to look for talent, veterans. I don't know why people are like, oh, well, they were in the military. Yes, they were. That's awesome. They follow directions. They're bright, they're trained, they're disciplined. Also military spouses. They're often overlooked because people think, oh, they're just going to move in 3 years. Well, guess what? Everyone's remote, right? Maybe they'll move, but they can still work for you. And the last place I'm going to suggest that you look for talent is Uber, or when you're in the back of a Lyft car. I have had some amazing conversations with these drivers when I put my phone down, and they are spectacular. And many of them are just driving as a side hustle. Let's talk about talent magnetism. Let's see. You got to scream your differentiation. Some of you are the best kept secret in your town. You have a great workplace, only nobody knows about it. And so when you are looking for talent, I can tell you this, it's a lot easier to hire talent when talent comes to you. A lot easier. You have to turn your team into a hiring machine. Every single employee should be a brand ambassador. And I do work with clients. I teach them how to do this. I teach them how to help their people recruit talent. And many of you have 10 people in HR, bigger companies, maybe 100, but you've got thousands of job openings. Wouldn't it be great if you had people on the ground helping you? And it's critical that you do this. And then the other thing that you want to do is, somebody mentioned it earlier, you want to become a destination organization. You want to be the workplace that everyone wants to come work for. So there's a lot to think about. I mentioned earlier that 95% of people were thinking about leaving. I want to share with you the strange case of the leaking employees. It's something that I discovered when I was working with a client who recently saw an uptick in the number of people that were leaving in the call center. And many of you, would think, well, it's just a call center. Of course, people are leaving those jobs all the time. But recently that number went up. And so there was a new head of HR, and she was smart enough to recognize something's not right here. And so she hired me to come in and really uncover the real reason why people were leaving. And so what was so interesting about this opportunity, which I call Matuson's Employee Stickiness Project, is that if you looked at the report from HR, the reason people were leaving was for a better opportunity. Who can blame them, right? I'd leave for a better opportunity. I'm sure you would as well. But here's the thing. Nobody ever asked the question, why would someone consider a better opportunity in the first place? And that was my job. And what I discovered was that that better opportunity had nothing to do with what the information that was in those reports said. And I did that, I discovered that by actually talking to people who had recently left the company. And I have to tell you, I was pretty surprised how honest they were with me. And I think that's because, first of all, I didn't work for the company. And I also listened really deeply. And they told me things that they would never have told their employer. And when I went back to the employer, I put in a special section of the report that I call "In Their Words." And I'll tell you, when their leaders read the report, comments came back to me like, I had no idea it was so awful to work here. My buyer, the person who hired me, said, I had tears in my eyes. I mean, but here's the good news. Now they know. Now the company knows they're taking steps to change things, and they're already seeing a dramatic drop in employee turnover in the call center. So many of you are thinking, well, we know why people are leaving, but I'm going to challenge you and ask you, do you really know? Do you really know why people are leaving? And, with that in mind, if you hang on, I'm going to create, I have some special offers for you that will help you discover this. So I want to open things up for questions because I promised you that I would take them live. And so why don't we do that, Linda?
So if you have questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A. We have one question, said that particular call center, what are they doing to retain their people?
What are they doing to retain their people? Well, first of all, money matters. And they have been losing people because of money. That did come out. And they are looking at compensation, and they're looking at it very closely, and they are adjusting salaries. And if you're not doing that, you have to figure out, what is turnover really costing you? And some studies say it's 1 times earnings, 2 times, 3 times. Let's be conservative and say 1 times. And you multiply that by the number of people leaving, you've got some wiggle room in there to increase your wages. And I would encourage you to do that for the people you want to keep, not the marginal performers, because you've got this great opportunity, if people leave, to hire other people's talent.
Okay. James would like to know about destination organization. So James, I'm going to promote you. And if you can ask your question, and Roberta will answer that for you. Go ahead, James. Yep.
Hey, James, I see your name.
All right. Well, what if James seems to be muted? Why don't you tell us, Roberta, how do we create a destination organization?
Well, think about, first of all, you have to look at your population, right? So, if you've got for the most part, if most of the people that work in your industry are young, what they want might be a little bit different than people who are more mature, right? And so the best way to know how to create a destination organization is to really ask your people, what would they like? Like, in an ideal world, what would it take to make this an awesome place to work? A lot of times it's leadership. I will be honest with you. I am an executive coach, and I have worked with some leaders who really needed support. I'm also the author of Suddenly in Charge. Having been suddenly in charge at 24 myself, I know that just because you get a title doesn't mean you know what the heck you're doing. And so if you want to become a destination organization, you really have to have well-oiled, great leaders, great leadership. That's number one. Because if you have that, and I'll tell you right now, most people don't, you've got an advantage that no one will be able to take your people away.
All right.
There's a lot more, but again, if you want the article, just write to me and I'll be happy to send it to you.
Okay.
Oh, I want to add one more thing, Linda. You know, it's one thing to be a destination organization, but if nobody knows, who cares, right? So there are like great places to travel in the world, but if we never hear about them, is anybody going to those places? You know, I don't think so.
All right. Lyle has a question. Lyle, if you can unmute yourself, there you go.
Good morning, and greetings from Smoky Kamloops, BC. Thank you, Roberta. I'm really enjoying your webinar. So it's just excellent, and it resonates with me. Work for the provincial government here in BC, and one of the reasons why we say we struggle with retention is we don't pay enough. And I read that one of the reasons why we are dissatisfied at work is the obsession with money. We all know that we need to make money as part of our job, but why do we obsess over it and use that as an excuse to why we cannot retain good qualified people?
Well, first of all, you know, money, when you're paid fairly for the work that you do, you feel valued, right? And so, like, I'm a speaker, and so many times people will come to me and say, we'd love you to speak at our conference. We have an honorarium. And as soon as I hear those words, I'm like, no, I don't think so. Because that basically means we're going to pay you $500 while we pay, you know, Hillary Clinton $100,000. Like, that doesn't make me feel valued, right? So why would I spend my time speaking at your conference for $500? So it's like, why would I give you my skills and my expertise when you're not willing to pay for that? And other people are. And so this whole business, like you hear all the time from the nonprofits, we have no money. Well, guess what? My client is the Greater Boston Food Bank. They have raised their salaries considerably. They get it. They know that if they want good people and they're a nonprofit and they want to compete, they're going to have to pay. And so maybe you need, you know, you're in government, so it's a little different, but maybe you need to ask your donors for more money. So, you know, and if government doesn't come up with the salaries, then you're all going to just get like the bottom of the barrel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question, which is, how can one be qualified for a destination organization if you haven't completed all the requirements? How do you start to get on that path?
Okay, because you're right, you can't be qualified if you're a crappy place to go. I don't know why anyone would want to go to that destination. So listen, you didn't get to where you are overnight, and you're not going to get there overnight. And so you have to start the process. And I work with a lot of organizations to help them create workplaces where employees love to work and customers love to do business. And, you know, it takes time, but more than time, it takes commitment. Okay. And you can't just say you want to be that. You really have to commit to that. And so you even, you know, I told you earlier about the president of Gravity, you know, even like during the pandemic, when it looked like his company might go under, I mean, he and his partner, they gave up their entire salary. They're like, we're committed to making this work. So you got to really think about what you're committed to, because these throwaway lines, you know, our employees are our greatest assets. I mean, they're just BS if you're not going to put the money and the resources behind that statement.
Great. So we have a comment that Doug says, ageism is huge still. Employers don't think it through. They're hiring under a paradigm that's changed. What do you recommend? I mean, you talked a little bit earlier when we were getting started about Wally, who's I think 82 years old, who was the female pilot on Jeff Bezos' rocket launch today. So obviously ageism was able, you know, she was able to kind of overcome that, but how do you start changing that if that's your organization?
Well, if you call Wally overcoming ageism, and I think she was trained at like in her 20s or 30s, and it took her like 50 years, like I would have to, you and I could have a conversation about that. You know, ageism is real, and it's really crazy at the same time, because if you look at mature workers, they've already been through recessions. If they want to work, they're working hard, right? You don't have to worry about them going out on, Saturday, Sunday night and partying and not making it into work on time. They have so many skills. They can mentor younger people. It's insane to me. And that's why one of my recruitment strategies with my clients is to, again, we're in the amusement park. Let's go left. Let's look at mature workers. Let's leave the younger workers for other companies. They can all fight and kill each other over that workforce. We have an advantage here.
Great. Bill says it's the talented people who leave, not the mediocre ones, and poor performers will stay as long as you let them. How do you go work fixing that problem?
Oh, Bill, you're a very smart man. Yes. Well, first of all, if you remember, like I remember being on the playground and waiting for people to pick teams in sports. And I wasn't an athletic kid. And I literally would walk in the field while they were choosing names going, please, dear God, let them pick me, because I wanted to be on the best team. And I'll be honest with you, oftentimes I was picked like at the end. And so it's the same thing with talent. People want to work with other talented people. And so if you want to create these incredible teams, you need to get rid of the talent that's not working. And you can't say to yourself, well, at least I have people. Well, you have mediocre people. And if those mediocre people are allowed to stay, people will look at them and say, well, I don't have to kill myself. And then those great people will become more in the mediocre line. So you really have to, every 6 months, assess your talent and ask yourself, the people that we have on board, are they going to help us get to where we need to go? And I have those difficult conversations quite often with my clients. And many times we decide that no, they're not coming along on this new journey. And having that conversation allows my clients to respectfully exit these people out.
So I think those are the questions, but Roberta, I have a question for you. If my organization is not up to par, which it's pretty hard to be doing all these things greatly, what would the first step I would be to take after this? Can you tell us a little bit more about that, or where should I go?
Well, you should call me, Linda. Which I'm going to go back to our slides here for a minute, because I want to make sure we end on time. So hang on. Where do we go from here? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to be doing another free webinar called Guard Your Exits. And I'm going to be talking about how to prevent your best people from taking the next flight out of your organization. And so if you're interested in that webinar, I'm not sure of the date yet, jot me a note and I'll make sure that we let you know when that happens. So I have some special offers for you all because you've been so generous with your time. And I should mention that these offers are going to expire 48 hours after you get the recording. Okay, so you've got 48 hours. 3 options for you. The first option is I'm happy to have a complimentary call with you to discuss your personal situations in your organizations as far as looking to attract and retain people. So that's number 1. Number 2, it's critical that everyone in your organization understands what's going on out there. And so I will offer for you guys, I will do this webinar for your privately for your organization at 50% off of what I normally charge. And so happy to do that for you. And then the third offer is, I talked a little bit about my ESP program, where I use my 6th sense to help you uncover the real reasons why people are leaving your organization, so you can stop those holes, the leakage. And I will, if you make a decision to engage me for that, I will do that for 50% off my normal fee. And it's a pretty good deal. And if you think about it, if I can help you prevent one person from leaving, you will have made your money back and then some. And I guarantee you, I can help you prevent at least one person and many, many more. So again, these offers are valid for the next 48 hours. So the future, it's in your hands. And if you want more details on this topic, head over to Amazon. My latest book, Evergreen Talent, is available there. You can download it. It's got much more detail than I can go into here. And I just want to leave you with these thoughts. You've got this incredible opportunity to create this kind of workplace where you can nurture your people, where you can grow a sustainable workforce. And if you plant those seedlings now, you know, in a month, 2-3 months time, you're going to start to see results. And so my wish for you is that you have, you know, an incredible year of great business success and continued evergreen talent. And so this is my contact information. Would love to have a conversation with you. If I can be of any help, please don't hesitate to reach out.